it's a huge mental thing because I remember, getting to it might have been mile 40 or so when, I'm just not feeling super great. And I'm also thinking of how I still have over a marathon left to go. That feels really scary, and I
Yeah.
don't like that, and I don't want to do that, and I think I might need to cry for a little bit because that sounds awful. And but then, for me, a lot of it comes down to like remembering to eat and remembering to drink, and it's amazing how just like just keep fueling, keep like just taking care of yourself, and you might be surprised how many like waves you can go through of like getting the good feeling back again.
All right, it is the Fit for Radio podcast. My name is Drew Titeman. I'm your host, and we're here at the Stafford Hills Club like we are every single week, where I work out and I work. Work meets play is what they say, and if you haven't been here, it's amazing. Saltwater pool, brand new facilities, classes, and even a kids club, so my little ones can go do that while we try and get our bodies and minds right. StaffordHills.com, and of course, hit me up and I'll get you half off your initiation fee. And right now, I am so excited to have our guest on today. Her name is Liz Derstine. Liz, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Drew.
I'm so glad you're here. You are an incredible person. You're what I would say straight away is an overachiever. You do some really incredible stuff. The thing that brings you here today is your ability to crush at long distance trail running, and just both supported and self-supported. Some of these things that you have done are truly incredible. And so I'm just going to touch off on some of it, like your ability to do the Appalachian Trail, self-supported women's record on the Long Trail. How do you pronounce the Pinhoti Trail?
Pinhoti, yeah, you got it.
Pinhoti. And then let me try this last one. Kungsleden.
I think that's pretty good.
Not too bad.
I'm not Swedish, so I don't know, but I've been saying Kungsleden, but that could be wrong.
I just wanted to get the leading right. I think I got the Swedish ending. They're pretty good. But this, for people who don't understand what all of that means, now, just recently, you backpacked the entire Pacific Crest Trail. And that is from Mexico to Canada. And
Yes.
you did that in just under 70 days, 69 and change. Now, if you're playing at home and you need to get a calculator out for that, I did. And so I'll make this a little easy on you. Liz, that's 37.8 miles a day. Every day? Is that right?
Every day. Yeah, that's right.
Oh my gosh.
I think it's, I'm being specific because I'm like, I hiked all those miles, but I think it did come out to a little over 38 miles.
Oh, okay.
2,651 miles in just under 70 days. And even though it was 4 months ago now that I finished, it still feels really fresh. Like it was a big experience and a really amazing one. And I'm still kind of coming off of it.
That is amazing. Now, I have only hiked a very small chunk of that trail near like the Sisters Mountains up near Bend, Oregon. And it's an incredible. Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful up there. But the first thing that came to my mind when you're doing all those miles, when I did it, it was just part of a thing called Outward Bound, where, you would do for 2 straight weeks, you're in the mountain portion. And what happened to my body, like how dirty I was, what happened to my feet? I mean, the moleskin, and then eventually it's duct tape because we're out of moleskin. And it's just like, I looked like my feet were from a third world country. And how I'm just bewildered on how you can possibly, like, even if it's just feet, like, how is that possible for you not to like
Yeah, it
blister out?
was it's you're bringing back memories. Yeah, my feet, I mean, were probably the thing that took the longest to recover. Just it's, a lot of impact, not just from the miles, but from carrying, your pack, the food, the
Mm-hmm.
water. And yeah, I remember going through, there are a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of wildfires on the West Coast, and it leaves these long stretches of burned sections where,
Yep.
you're going through a forest, but, there are no leaves. It's a lot of like some tree, a, a fair amount of trees are still standing, but there's no shade. And then the ground is also very ashy and dusty. And I was probably the most filthy I have ever been. And I would write these little blogs every day. And, one of my complaints was like, I'm just so dirty. I have dirt in every like crevasse of my body. And some people were like, it's just, I'm getting comments, from friends and people that are following along, like it's just dirt, like who, it's okay if you get a little dirty. And I'm like, yes, but like also I don't think you understand like how incredibly dirty I am, and like all of my belongings, and like at some point there's no there, you just have to kind of live in your filth, but that's also part of it too,
Absolutely, it's part of it because when I just did the 2 week thing, I thought I was so tan, right? Like I came out of there and
Yeah.
people were like, "Geez, I've never seen you so tan." And then I took a shower and there was just like what turned into like a mud river that just was like running down the bathtub, and I can only imagine that for you was on another level.
Totally. You're like, especially the sock tan. You're like,
Yep.
oh, yeah. And then, yeah, a lot of it actually is, in fact, dirt, but, but
Hmm.
yes.
Now, you mentioned the fires, and I'm from Oregon, so when we had a
Yeah.
lot of these crazy fires, every time you even drive through the forest, you see it. Were you inhaling? Were you like finding that like the dirt was kicking up, and you were having to like fight through the inhalation of the ash too, or was that how did that go?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good question. Cause I haven't thought about it in a while, but now that you're asking, it's like, actually, yeah, like I would get nosebleeds and stuff just from like huffing and puffing through. I mean, it's also like, dry climate and conditions, but yeah, definitely with all the dust kicking up. And then there were some sections where there were active fires, not like close to like, I was safe where I was hiking, but yeah, there were definitely some smoky sections where,
Hmm.
visibility is bad. Like there might be a lot of mountains on the horizon, but you can only kind of see the silhouettes of them in the distance. And so yeah, that thankfully like that, was only for a few days. Uh, like throughout the hike. But yeah, it's definitely present for sure.
Now, just to take people back a little bit, because you didn't just strap on some shoes and start setting records like this. You kind of went grassroots on your running, like most people do, starting in high school, right, and then into college. What
Totally. Yeah.
distances were you doing then? Were you? I'm guessing there was cross country involved. If you end up going
Yeah.
distance.
Yeah. Yeah. So I ran cross country in high school just for fun. I was never super competitive. I tried track, but it was like a little too intense for me. In college, I was interested in running, but thought like, I was studying music, and I was like, well, I need to take my music really seriously and practice 8 hours a day and on top of classes and blah blah blah. So I actually spent like most of my time in college focused on music, but then I, during that time, I'd emerge from like the basement practice rooms, and then I'd see the cross country team running by, just like having a great time and like laughing and running. And like, I'm just like, oh, that looks really fun. So I ended up joining my college cross country team, and I ended up trying track to my senior year of college. And then at the college level, they have really long distances on track. So I did the 5K and 10K on the track.
Oh, okay, because yeah, at the high school level, you're only doing like they are only have the mile and maybe a little bit more, but
Yeah.
not enough to challenge the true distance runner. Now, a lot
Yeah.
of people would say that it's daunting to join a college team when you haven't been doing that. Were you already running on your own, or how do you just join cross country? I would be throwing up in a garbage can.
Well, yeah, I did run on my own, but I also went to a very small liberal arts D3 school. So like I ran a little bit on my own, maybe up to 8 miles, but like not very consistently. So that, I mean, they would see me out there sometimes. And like when I did finally approach Coach Patton, the head coach of cross country and track, and said like, could I join the team? He was like, I was wondering when you'd come around. Like they had told me
Okay.
and they kind of knew what I was up to, but yeah.
That makes sense. Now, um, at some point, well, and actually, I want to stick to college for a second because I think it would be a
Hmm.
disservice not to point out that all that time you spent in the classroom and pressing on, you have a double master's in music. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. So I took a pretty long gap between my undergraduate and then my graduate studies. I actually just went back to school 3 years ago in Boston at a school called Longy School of Music, and I spent 3 years there earning two master's degrees, both Master of Music, one in composition and one in collaborative piano.
Wow. And so I did my deep dive even to another level, and I went and I listened to some of your music, and I think it's really cool that
Oh.
you some of the music that you've composed, that you've used your time on the trails as inspiration for the music.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right on, and thanks for looking up my music.
It's
But
great.
yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah, that kind of started. So I mean, I've been writing music for a long time, but the two worlds of like all this outdoor stuff that I do and then my creative side with music kind of came together without my really meaning to when I hiked the Appalachian Trail 5, 6, 5 years. No, it's 2026, 6 years ago now. But when I hiked the trail, I did have a support crew, a one-person support crew, but the actual hiking that I was doing, most of it was alone. And I was hiking very long hours every day, like 18, 20. I think my longest day was like 22 hours of hiking. And so I was in this pretty sleep deprived state and also just experiencing a lot of physical suffering from the task at hand. I mean, it was all like I chose to do it, but there was a lot of suffering. So just the combination of that, like being very deep in my head and also really struggling, music was kind of the thing that it was almost like maybe a self-soothing kind of thing. Like I would have these melodies come into my head. They would by nature be very repetitious because I was doing a very repetitious thing. And then I would even have these mantras come to mind. And one of them was give it what little you can. And I wrote like a little song based on that mantra, but it was how I was feeling at the time was that like I felt so weak. Like I was giving every ounce of strength and energy I could to this task to a point where like I couldn't run because I had horrible shin splints and blisters, so I could walk. But my walk wasn't really my regular everyday walk. Like it just I wasn't moving as well as I would have liked to just because I was punishing my body. But I was like, okay, I feel like I can't give a big heroic effort right now, but I can take another step. I can give I can give a little effort, like a little step at a time. And that's kind of what kept me going, like this mantra and then also this music that was just kind of continuously running through my head.
It's super inspirational. It's like most people, they hear about what you've done and they have a failure to launch. It's like, oh, I can't do that. And you're
Mhm.
out there. You possess the skills to do it both physically and mentally. But it still is such a daunting task that at a point you're basically shuffling down the trail, and your shin splints are so
Yeah.
bad. And I talked to you a while back about, I just recently tried to beat a physical challenge where I tried to break the world record for push-ups in an hour. And I know that feeling when you're so used to being able to crush, but now the body is just it at a point, mental push only goes so far. Like the body will just stop going, like almost like the throttle is pegged and I
Yeah.
can't go anywhere. Um, and that's how I kind of feel like you are in that moment. Now, how do you get back from that? Like,
Yeah.
so the shin splints and all that, when you rest, does that calm down, or you can't rest too long or you're going to fall off pace? How do you deal with that injury versus what's in, like, basically how do you tell the difference between I'm injured and I'm just hurting?
Yeah, that's a good, I guess. I mean, with some of those injuries, it's like, well, it's not necessarily the same spot all the time. Like, I don't think I think I'd be concerned if it were like a bone thing, for example, but I think it's just like, I was just really overworked. And I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. I am, and I guess I don't know totally how to explain it, but I do feel very in tune with my body to the extent that I'm like, this really sucks and this really hurts, but like, but I'm still able to move. Like I guess I just focused on what I could do, and I noticed that whenever I tried to run, that would make my shins way worse. And
Mhm.
when I walked, I was like, oh, this isn't so bad. It's, I feel pretty bad in the morning, and then toward the end of the night, that's when it would flare up the worst. So that usually determined when my day would end, when I was just like, I can't take this anymore and I need to stop.
That makes sense.
But on maybe like a more psychological and philosophical side, I mean, what kept me going was definitely the people that would come out to help. Like, people heard about what I was doing, and I didn't know them, they didn't know me, but they saw the little daily email updates that my crew support was sending out. And so even just like getting to talk with people that would, come and join me and just walk with me for a few hours, and also just seeing encouraging messages and stuff online, it kind of like got me out of my head, and it made me stop thinking about like all the internal stuff, like how much
Mhm.
I was hurting. And it was like, oh, there are people out there that are like, they're enjoying following, like it's giving them something or someone to root for. And that just really lifted me up a lot.
Yeah, and that extra support from people is so huge. Now, if I roll it back a little bit, you spent a long time, I think like 10 years, trying to qualify for the Olympics in the marathon. So you're used to the distance thing. Tell me just real quick about how that process went and before we got to the trail running.
Yeah. So I love setting big goals for myself, if that wasn't already clear. And yeah, way back in, I don't know, maybe like 2008, I graduated from college in '07. And as I had spent that year on my college cross country and track team. And, before that, I had always run, just, it was fun and social, and I just liked how it made me feel. But then I started to get interested in seeing, yeah, like how fast can I go? How far can I go? And I was just sort of perusing what does one need to do to qualify for the Olympics? And I looked at, the 10K. I was like, oh, that's really fast. I don't think I can do it. 5K, no way. And then I was like, marathon. And I think at the time, the marathon qualifying time, and this for I think it was for the Olympics, but more importantly to me, to qualify, it was the qualifying time for the U.S. Olympic marathon trials was 2:49, and the trials is a race that the U.S. specifically holds, and the top three people in that race get to go to the Olympics. So I
Okay.
wasn't, I didn't think like I can go to the Olympics. I mean, I was like, maybe I can qualify for this really elite, hard to get into race that determines the Olympic team. So I just kind of had my eyes or my mind set on that goal, and the qualifying time kept getting a little bit harder, like each Olympic cycle, like every 4 years. So I think it went down to 2:45 by 2020. So yeah, I chipped away at my marathon time. I only at from then to 2019, I took my time down from it. My first marathon was 3 hours 18 minutes. Uh, my last marathon, of in the year 2019, was 2:57. So on the one hand, it's like, man, only 20 or so minutes over 11 years. Like, shoot, but like I don't know. I believed in myself and I believed in that goal, and in the meantime, I had started thinking like, well, I don't know, maybe I want to try trail running. Maybe I want to hike the AT one day. So in 2019, I was like, I better start actually trail running if like I want to go for this new kind of challenge on the AT. So I started mixing in long distances for the first time. I tried my first 30-mile run, my first 40-mile run. I tried this multi-day trip it was November 2019. I tried, I think it was 3 or 4 days of 40 plus miles back to back to back to back on the AT. And something about that just unlocked something for me. I ran my first 100K ultra marathon the next month in December, and it went really well. I placed fourth and was something like 18 minutes behind the women's winner. And then the very next month, I kind of gave the marathon my last shot for that Olympic cycle, because I think the last date to qualify was maybe in January sometime. So in January 19th, 2020, I ran the Houston Marathon and knocked another 6 minutes off my marathon.
Nice.
And finished in 2:51. So it was just like, I don't know. I was kind of banging my head against the wall, going for this goal for such a long time, but like only kind of seeing minor improvements. But then I tried something new and it just like unlocked something for me. But then I started trail running and just like never looked back since then.
And the reason I went back to the marathon too is there is so much that goes into it mentally. People, when they complete a marathon, it is such a big deal to them that they put the sticker on their car, the half marathon sticker on their car, because it's daunting, and it's something that you should hold your head up and roll your shoulders back on. You're listening to the Fit for Radio podcast, brought to you by the Stafford Hills Club, a place where I work out and I work. And if you're looking for an experience above all else, they were voted the best health and wellness club in the Portland area. And it's for good reason. This place is nice. I can come here, unwind. They have an amazing kids club. My wife loves the classes. They've got spin class. They've got the Pilates, all the things. I see people dancing around in those studios all the time. I stick to the weight room and some of the exercise equipment. And of course, I love the sauna and the steam room. It really makes you feel good, gets you ready to take on the day. Or if you want to wrap it up that way, it all works out right here at the Stafford Hills Club. And if you need me, I'm here for you. Just send me a message and I will dial you in with half off the initiation fee here at Stafford Hills. Check out all the amenities at staffordhills.com. Because one of the big questions that I had coming into this conversation with you is I've never really sat down with somebody who did the ultra. I have one buddy who completed one, but he was like, limping across at the last minute. And I still thought that was crazy.
I mean, relatable.
Yeah. And so amazing. But for you to go into the zone like that, like, and I got a bunch of friends who like to run, and you get kind of like the runner's high, or when you're in the zone, that's what's happening. Explain that to me a little bit, and then explain the difference between that mental stuff in like standard distance running, and when you get to this crazy level that you're at, how does that go?
Yeah. I mean, so there's nothing better than a runner's high. I mean, just like when it doesn't hit that often, but when it does, it's that, yeah, just like an amazing, like you're in this state where everything's just clicking and flowing and you feel weightless and like your form is good. Like you might be running fast and not having to work so hard for it. I mean, it's an amazing feeling, and it usually comes, when you maybe like you've put months and months and months of work in of not feeling that way, but then it's kind of like, the nice little payoff that you get once in a while. and yeah, in the context of ultra racing, so I actually just came back from Italy, where I raced a 105K in this coastal mountain range in northern Italy and Slovenia. It was my first race back since hiking the Pacific Crest Trail.
That's
And
amazing.
oh, yeah, it was, yeah, an amazing place to be for sure. um, and yeah, running that race was a good kind of grounding reminder of how hard ultra running is, but also it was neat to experience and remember how, the pain and the suffering like that, you'll most likely experience some of that, but you just have to remember, just because something feels really, really bad in the moment doesn't mean you're going to feel like that the rest of the race. You just kind of have to work your way through it. It's a huge mental thing, because I remember, yeah, getting to it might have been mile 40 or so, when, I'm just not feeling super great. And I'm also thinking of how I still have over a marathon left to go. That feels really scary, and I
Yeah.
don't like that, and I don't want to do that, and I think I might need to cry for a little bit, because that sounds awful. And but then, for me, a lot of it comes down to like remembering to eat and remembering to drink, and it's amazing how just like just keep fueling, keep like just taking care of yourself, and you might be surprised how many like waves you can go through of like getting the good feeling back again. But it's a lot of ups and downs.
So that's a good question that I was going to get to here at some point. We just jump into it now. When you're in when you're in an ultra, which is going to be a little different than when you're trail running and you've got days and days and days, but like when you're in that one day or whatever it is, 24 hours, however long it takes to do all this
Yeah.
stuff, do you like, what are you eating and how often are you eating? And is your body craving all that, or is it rejecting stuff? Are you force feeding? I don't know what the body's doing.
Yeah, for me, I definitely have to just remember to eat on my own, because I don't think I'm not necessarily going to feel hungry during the race, or if anything, especially in those later stages when you're just so fatigued, like the last thing you want to do is eat. Like, it doesn't sound fun, but it's like you kind of have to override what your body is feeling and just be like, no, this will make you feel better. Like, you should eat. So I try to pack a mix of like practical food that is not necessarily enjoyable to eat, which one of those things is gels. I don't really like eating gels. They don't taste good. It's just like a sugar bomb. It's like sticky and syrupy. Like, it's just, I don't know. But
They're gross.
they're gross, but they do actually help. And out of all the things I eat, like, they do make me feel the best. So like, I just went to REI and stocked up on some like goo Roctane gels, and I'm just like, gross, hate this, don't want it, and I'm paying money for it. But like, and they're not a sponsor, so I'm like, sorry, I don't. But like, they do work. And even after the race, I was like, man, I should have packed some more goo because like it actually does work. And then, and so that's like the not fun thing. But then the fun things I packed for myself were just like chocolate covered granola, like chocolate chip granola bars, and just like actual snacks that I'd eat in my everyday life that are, you know, kind of tasty. And it was funny, like in this race in Italy at the aid stations, they had like the most Italian things, like bars of chocolate and like chunks of cheese and like sweet rolls uh and then like regular bread roll, like lots of bread, lots of cheese. Like, and it's funny, I wouldn't normally, and there was one station that had pizza, and I wouldn't normally think to eat like a dairy product while running, and like that sounds like bad news, but actually like it was really cold out there, and just like having some cheese was actually really nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I tried to like make sure to grab something. Yeah, one of my rules for myself at any ultra is like never leave an aid station without like having some kind of food, either eating it there or just like taking something with me to eat.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's the TMI question. You're there for 100 miles or 105 kilometers or whatever this last
Yeah.
one was.
Mhm.
You, what happens when someone, and maybe it's a thing where you don't even have to, but what happens when you have to use the restroom?
I mean, for me, I mean, I just like pull over and pop a squat if I need
Yeah.
to. And that, I think that's pretty common. But then they do have, like, sorry, I didn't see one, but like, if you need to go number two, like they
Like
have
a
aid
portalette.
stations throughout the course. Yeah. And at this one, it was actually the race course would just go through these little coastal mountain towns, and the stations would be set up in actual buildings, like local restaurants that
Oh,
the owners just let the race officials use their restaurant to set up their food, and then there were like actual indoor restrooms. So
oh,
that
that's
for
way
that
more
particular
civilized.
race, yeah, yeah. So combo of outdoors and then like actual indoor plumbing. But then yeah, a lot of races in the US, I mean, they'll have porta potties at the aid stations.
Mm-hmm. Well, that which makes it a little bit more enjoyable. You know, it's funny you were talking about the food, and I saw a video of a guy who was running an ultra, and I don't know if it was his first or whatever, but he was at like a little rest station or a place for him to like stop and like get it together, and he was eating this little triangle of peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and the joy,
Oh yeah.
like the eyes closed moaning joy that this guy was going through eating that little wedge. I just didn't, I figured that you wouldn't have an appetite, kind of like you said, but the guy was so into that little wedge of sandwich. It's just, maybe you just take the little victories at that point.
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes, yeah, like you never know what's gonna do it for you, but like you might just really be craving a PB&J. Yeah,
now
it just depends.
Now you said that they had some cheese at the European one. Now, um,
Yeah.
I find that cheese is like inflammation and dairy and all those things. Like it can make it harder to do
Yeah.
things on a regular basis. How is it that you're like? How do you treat your diet on a day to day when you're not doing something aggressive like that? When you're just living your life, how do you stay in a shape where you can do these things?
Oh, I don't really have any special kind of diet. If anything, I'm not like a shining example of what to eat. I used to live in Portland, Oregon, and I think I was very like influenced just like being in a city where it's like, you know, everything's like, not everything, but almost anywhere you go, you'll see like vegan options, gluten-free options, every like organic, local, like so like I don't know, pretty like conscientious of that stuff, and would just be try to, you know, I don't know, eat really healthy and like homemade. And but something about like when I started, it's really the AT. Like I think when I was on the AT, it was just, you know, there was such an output of energy that like I just would eat whatever and it didn't matter and I just didn't care. And I think something about that experience just like really shifted my mindset. Like I am not very precious or particular about what I eat. I just kind of eat everything or anything. But yeah, I don't know. Like I probably like my go-to meal is like chicken, rice, and veggies, or like
Yeah.
a chicken Caesar salad with like a bunch of bread, or like I don't know, but yeah.
Well, it's also all, I feel like diet is all relative to activity. So I always feel like people who are super active and who are constantly moving, food is fuel. And so if you are burning the fuel, then you should eat more of it and not worry so much, you know. And I live just
For
outside of
sure.
Portland, Oregon, so I know all about the organic, you know, everything's made with a seed instead of, you know, these standard proteins. But I do think there's something to be said about
Mhm.
fueling the body and not being so overly worried about it. And I used to be so intense about all the diet stuff and fasting. It had to be until noon and all these things. And it's like, well, if I got up and
Oh
worked out in the
wow.
morning,
Yeah.
why would I need to continue to fast until noon? Like my body's shaking, put something into it. And so I think that it's all
Ab-
relative.
yeah,
Now,
for sure. And just very, very personal too. So it's just like do what feels right for you. But yeah.
yeah, exactly. And even though I think probably the stat something like 60% of America's lactose intolerant on some level, but we love cheese. So, you know, it's something we
We
we can
love cheese.
and
I
I
will
love
always love
cheese.
cheese.
Yeah, I actually I ate pizza yesterday. I mean, I knew I was like red flagging myself, but that did not stop me. It was pretty amazing. Now
Oh,
you have all this experience in music. I was going through and like your music is like on another level. It's not just like this random crap you find, you know,
oh.
popping around on the radio. Like you are a legit musician and composer. And I even went down the rabbit hole enough to see that you also are, you know how to sing. I saw some videos of you singing with a group at one point, and even I think some solo
Oh.
stuff. So very impressive. I bring it all up because, you know, life is so busy, right? Like you've got
Mhm.
you've got this trail running stuff, so there has to be some training involved with that. Home life, personal life, work life, music. How do you
Yeah.
balance it? And is there a time where you have to dump one of them?
Yeah, that has been a pretty big theme coming back. So I finished the Pacific Crest Trail this past August, and I had also just graduated from my master's program early in May. So like graduated in May, started the trail in June, finished in August, and then September was just kind of like straight back into life, just home life. And I really took on a lot, not really realizing how much I was taking on. Like as a gig musician, like I do a lot of gigs around Boston, and that could mean anything from playing at schools or performances, uh, music directing, accompanying, and it's kind of like it would just be like, oh hey, would you be free this one weekend to do this? Sure. Would you be free on these weeknights to do this? Sure. And I just kind of said yes to everything because everything not there wasn't one thing in particular that was like necessarily a really huge commitment. But then suddenly I'm juggling all of these things. I mean, I guess it was kind of like my first season as like a full-time freelancer. And so I learned some pretty big lessons there just about like how much I need to protect my time and just be careful about how much I say yes to, because like I committed and I did, I did all of the things that I said I would do, but it was just like a very frazzled and kind of like stressful time because I'd be running all over greater Boston, or really driving all over from like one thing to the next thing to the next thing kind of throughout the week. So yeah, so
So you're working on that part.
I mean, that, yeah, it kind of like went on right up until the end of the year. And now, yeah, going into this spring, I'm like, okay, I think I need to just pace myself a little better and just kind of know my limits. And so like, I hate saying no to anything, but I'm, yeah, so I think that'll just be a continual work in progress for me. And that, yeah, not only on the career side, but yeah, like you said, like there's, personal life and home life and yeah, music, running, all of it, and finding a balance.
Now, I appreciate you taking or saying yes to this podcast, because of all the people that I tried to schedule as like some of my initial guests, when your name came up, I was super excited. And you were so busy that I was like, we had like a 1 day pinpoint that we could get this in. And I really appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Oh, well, I really appreciate you having me on and for being willing to like, yeah, kind of figure out the timing on it with me too. So yeah, I'm really glad
Oh,
it could
no.
happen.
Oh, it's amazing. And there are a couple of things I wanted to touch on while I still have you here. And that is, I keep going back to my own little couple weeks in the mountains, because it's the only frame of reference I have to like kind of your line of thinking when you're out doing these trails. And as part of that process, when I did the Outward Bound, was a 3 day solo where it was just me in like a little tent, and I could like get out and walk around this forest area by myself, but I had no human contact. And it was quite a few years ago. And so like there's still quite a bit of ADD burning around in my mind and my body. And I found it very difficult at first. And then I found like the amount of deep thinking that goes on once you kind of get past the initial boredom is quite deep, in its thinking. So how do you do it? Like when you're out there,
Yeah.
are you truly alone, or how often do you have interaction, and where do you go in your mind during those long periods?
Yeah. On the PCT, yeah, it was kind of a mix. It started and ended pretty lonely because I started later in the season than most hikers. I think most hikers started March, April, May. But because of school and also because I was trying to set a record, I started in June. And this is in Southern California in the desert. And part of that is because I knew, yeah, like I'd be attempting to cover, a lot of miles quickly, and I would get to the Sierra Mountains. Like I had to basically make sure I didn't get to the Sierra Mountains before most of the snow had melted, because yeah, so like I had, anyway, that's why I timed it that way. But yeah, it meant that there were some pretty lonely days out there. And yeah, I think probably the longest I went without seeing anyone was, yeah, maybe around 2.5 days. And then it was kind of similar up in Washington because I like had kind of passed the bubble of hikers, and I even saw like a lot of the southbound hikers kind of towards southern Washington, but the farther north I got, the more lonely it was. But yeah, it's really interesting. Like when you spend, and maybe this was true for you too, during your time in Oregon, but like when you're left alone with your thoughts for for that long, like it brought up some like pretty buried stuff, like old memories or just things I hadn't thought of in a while, maybe things that are even still bothering me like from a long time ago, but it's like they're not fun to think about, so it's like I don't voluntarily think about them. Like, but then when you're just left to your own devices, stuff comes up. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like I ended up like I wasn't expecting that to happen, but I'm like, man, I am like working through some old stuff right now that like I did not know was still affecting me. But it was actually like pretty helpful to work through it a little bit.
That's awesome. You get to a checkpoint and you're calling up people you got old beef with and tell them that you've thought through it. Now you got a few things you want to say.
Yeah, or maybe like having pretend conversations.
Yeah.
But it's like also it's like even I mean like if you can it's like you don't necessarily need to have those conversations in person, but it's like if you can get to a point where you can just like forgive people in your past, move on, like that's a pretty big thing.
Mm-hmm. And I think that while you're out there and you're in that little world, there's like a level of vulnerability there that just kind of, and it takes everything else away. You're kind of in
Yeah.
like the simplicity of one foot in front of the other. I mean, you know where you need to get to, point A to point B. You know that certain things need to happen, but it's really you've stripped it down to the basics of just step, 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 or run, 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 run. And I find the same thing, because I do the push-ups thing, 1,000 of them in the morning before people get up.
Yeah.
And during that time, it's very simple. It's
That's
just
crazy. That's awesome.
it is crazy, but it's also like I think about your accomplishments and mine are like very momentary. It's like pound it out and then like rest. And then, you do it for an hour and a half or 2 hours max, and then it's done. Yours is just like a continual thing. But when I'm in the monotony of, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I'm just counting. It's funny, I'm counting, but like subconsciously, I'm having a full blown conversation with myself about all these different thoughts that I'm having in the dark, in the quiet, when it's just me. But it's almost like a metronome of 11, 12, 13, 14. And I kind of feel like hiking along is also, it's just that tap, 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 like can just put you into like almost like
Yeah.
a meditation.
Absolutely. You said that so well. Like I couldn't say it any better. It's so true. It just kind of brings you to a different place that like everyday life doesn't necessarily allow us to do that because it's not simple for the most part.
So for those of us who don't know exactly what it means, you hear about these long trail runs and how you're covering the amount of ground that you're covering in over the course of like 70 days. But there's also these terms like supported and self-supported. What is the difference, and like what does a trail run look like in each of those scenarios?
Yeah. So when I'm trying to complete a trail as fast as I can or set a record, it means I'm going for a fastest known time or FKT. And there are different categories for FKTs. There's supported. And so that means like, you are you are self-powered in terms of like, you have to walk or run all of the miles. You can't get in a vehicle. You can't do anything like that. But you can have as much support, outside support as you want. You can have people meet you at road crossings along the way. You can have people running with you. You can have people carrying your stuff. You can pretty much have people help you in any way, like other than carrying you or like doing that work for you. And I mentioned you can't get in a car. I just meant you can't like be in a car driving you along the course, but you can actually get in a car. You can get off trail. Someone can give you a ride into town. You can go to a hotel and a restaurant, and then they can drive you back to the trail where you left off, and then you can keep going. That's still fine and part of a supported record. But with self-supported, you can't have any planned outside help. You can't have any friends, coming and bringing you food. You can't have anybody walking or running with you. At least that's planned. Like when I was out hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, if I meet a hiker and we start chatting and walking together, like that's okay. But I just can't have anyone like coming out specifically to help me. And then I also like you have to mail yourself all your supplies, or you can purchase your supplies along the way. You just can't, yeah, have anyone specifically bringing anything for you. And then let's see, with self-supported, yeah, like you can still you could still get a hotel if you want. You just can't have anything like prearranged. But yeah, basically like self-supported is all self-powered. You're carrying all of your stuff. And then there's one more category that's called unsupported. It wouldn't be possible for a super duper long trail like Pacific Crest Trail, but for say a shorter effort like 50 miles, 100 miles, 200 miles. Unsupported means you carry everything with you from the very beginning to the very end, like all of your
Whoa.
food, anything you're going to possibly use. You can't use anything like man-made throughout the hike. Like you basically, it's like you and the wild, and you have to, like, if you have trash, you have to bring your trash with you all the way to the end. You can't like throw it out in a garbage bin. So those are kind of like the three categories.
And like you said, that last category, I mean, if you're doing 2,600 plus miles, you can't do that. You're not going to be able to have enough food and other supplies to get
No,
you through.
unless you can like make some kind of contraption that you'd be like carrying
It's a
like
lot.
a huge like stroller or like I don't know, but it would be really extreme and silly. And yeah, I think the longest unsupported effort that I know of is Heather Anderson hiking the 800-mile Arizona Trail, and she like that, which is unheard
Whoa.
of, incredible, and she did
That's
it. So
wild. So I saw in some of your videos, like it's different sometimes, different styles. Sometimes you're with people, sometimes you're not. And I saw tents. Like, so when you stop down for the night, are you setting up a tent every night, or do you sometimes sleep outside, or what's the deal?
yeah, I slept in a tent most nights. And yeah, maybe like once a week or so, if the trail goes near a town, I might treat myself to a hotel room. Then I can get a shower and do laundry and stuff like that. But yeah, otherwise I'm in a tent. There was maybe, I slept in some odd places. Like once, I think it was my first or second night, I slept under a bridge. This was on the Pacific Crest Trail. And another night, I slept just on a picnic table at Kennedy Meadows right before entering the Sierra Mountains. So but I know some people like to cowboy camp, which just means you don't have a tent, you're just sleeping under the stars. Like maybe you have your sleeping pad, but I don't know. I like having maybe the even if it's like fake security, like even
Yeah.
if I'm not actually that much more safe in a tent, I just feel safe in a tent. So I like having it.
And there's something about the tent. There's two things. If I can't see it, it can't scare me, right? So if something's rustling out there and I'm inside the tent, I'm still safer if I'm not just like looking at this wild animal staring back at me. So I think my ignorance is bliss there. And especially when you get into any snow zone, having that tent also gives the ability to escape a mosquito situation, because I one time
Totally.
was hit by just my legs. I think I counted 250 mosquito bites just because there was nothing I could do. You get
That in
to
Oregon?
yeah, and that's in the Sisters where they get those
Yeah.
snowpack where they've nested there, and at dusk they just
Yes.
come for your soul. And so
Yeah,
that
it's
nice to have a tent.
Oregon was really brutal. Yeah, so I was reviewing my Strava activity. Strava's like a website you can log all your runs or workouts or whatever, and I use a GPS watch, so it tracks all of my movements and puts it on a map. And I zoomed in to just figure out, I wanted to be like, where did I sleep that night? And at the end of the night, it was just my routes line was zigzagging all over the place, but all in one spot. And I was like, what was I doing? And then I remembered there were so many mosquitoes, and I was trying to set up my tent. So like
You're like
in
running
between
around.
God, that's sunny up. Yeah. So it was, yeah, I was like, oh yeah, now I remember.
That's amazing. Now, when you're up there, another question is, you're out in these places that are very remote and, there's not a cell phone signal or anything like that. So if an emergency is going to happen and you're alone, do you have a beacon or do you have something that you can set off if
Mhm.
things go sideways?
Yeah, I do. I carry a Garmin Garmin InReach Mini 2. And it's just a tiny little like device. I just always have it attached to my pack on a little carabiner, but it's unlike a phone, which phones break. Like even if you have a protective case, like you could smash the face of a phone or it could get water damage, where this thing, like you could throw it at a rock and it would still be protected, or it can be out in the elements and it will not fail.
Yeah.
Because it has just like protection around it. So I had that set up. It shared my location every 30 minutes. Like it would just ping my location, and my family and friends had a map so they could check in. I kept it private and not public because I was like, I don't want people to just be able to come out and like find me if they
Yeah.
want to, but at least my family knew where I was. And then, yeah, if there were an emergency, it has a little SOS button that I can, use, and that would contact, whatever local emergency service. And it also has the ability to text. So yeah, it's a very handy device, and it definitely offers some peace of mind. And it's a nice way to be able to communicate, just even if I just want to say, like, hey, I'm safe, or like, hey, this is where I'm going to stop. Good night. Like, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's very
It
handy.
gives you peace of mind and your family. Like I can only imagine
Mhm.
like my parents being like, day 40, like I hope he's alive, but if you're
Yeah.
moving, then you're alive. And then, or you can text them and be like, hey, everything's good. I got to checkpoint Z or whatever. It would give me peace of
Yeah,
mind.
exactly.
Because I
Yeah.
think if it was my kids, I would
Highly
be
recommend.
10 days into it, I'd be on the trail, not prepared, trying to find them. So you have to keep that thing handy.
Oh,
Now
yeah. Yeah, my mom was definitely following along and would be like, "Hey, your thing hasn't moved. Like, are you okay?" And it's like, I wouldn't, I wouldn't hear from her like that often, but it was like anytime something abnormal happened with the tracker, she was on top of it. So I was like, "Oh,
yeah,
she must be checking in like all the time, and she's probably like a little stressed right now." So I'm sure
yeah.
we all felt a little better when I was done.
I'm sure every time you sign up for one of these things, they take a little bit of a deep breath, like, oh, here we go. We're going to do it again. But they got to be getting used to it because
Yeah.
you are getting to a point here with all of these trails and with your times. It's just so impressive, Liz, that you can
Oh,
balance all
thank
that stuff and everything else that's going on in your life. Like I said, when I first started doing the research, I was like, okay, this lady does so much. And then when this last week, I'm like, okay, I really got to hunker down and like learn more about her. And I'm like, it really made me feel lazy.
Oh, no.
And I feel like I do a lot,
Well,
but I felt lazy.
well, I know that's not true, but I appreciate, I'll take it as a compliment. So thank you.
Of course. And what I want to close with is, people are going to listen to this and they're going to think that you are, and actually in some of the stuff you sent me earlier, that when you do these things, it unlocked superhero mode in you, and that, it's a part of you didn't necessarily know existed. And here it is crushing it.
Mhm.
For somebody else out there who wants to do cool things or try and do things that are outside their comfort zone, and it's something that I really have embraced in my own life, and it took a long time, a lot of failure to launch. What would you say to people who want to get into distance running or to achieve a goal that just seems unobtainable?
Yeah, that's a great question. I like with, I guess, I had this entryway to trail running around 2019. Really, it started from like just reading about it, like reading books and like learning. I mean, I guess that's just what got me interested in the first place. But from there, I was like, okay, this sounds really cool. I want to do it. How do I do it? Like, so I mean, I signed up for a workshop for people that were interested in hiking the AT. This was with Warren Doyle at the Appalachian Folk School. But you know, I was like, I just want to learn more. So I mean, that's one thing, signed up for a workshop. I feel like, you know, going from, I'll go to camping as an example. Like I back then didn't know anything about camping. Like I don't know how to set up a tent. I don't know like where trails are. Like I don't know what to do. So like, I mean, I guess I found like basically got friends to go with me and like try to figure it out together. Like I didn't go from nothing to just backpacking on my own. I, grabbed a friend and we're like, well, let's try this adventure together. Let's figure out how to set up a tent together. Let's commiserate together. And, so I guess like, I just like, it was definitely out of my comfort zone, but like finding a buddy to like go at it together with was really helpful. And for running, I mean, I would say kind of like the same, like look up if there are group runs in your area, and that it's a great way to meet people. It's a great way to find training partners. And I mean, one of my biggest, I'm thinking now back to high school, one of my biggest fears was like being last or being the slowest or whatever. But like, I guarantee you there are other people that are feeling the exact same way or are maybe worried about the same things. Like you're not alone. And those kind of like group events are a really great way to just get into the sport.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like everybody has potential for growth. You know, we talked about how your marathon time, I mean, it came down like, I think it was almost like 26, 27 minutes, somewhere in that amount of time through all of that hard work that you put in, and how you can just kind of chip away at stuff. We had a guy on just a couple weeks ago who he couldn't even pass the physical to get into the military. And now he has 8 world records, all because you just refuse to take no for an answer. And I think you're a perfect example of that. I mean, you could run, you could play the piano, you could do all these things, but you took it to a level to being able to, to be a champion at it and to be a record holder. And I just think it's really impressive. I think people can learn a lot from you and your story. And I hope to stay in contact with you and hear more about where you head next, because, I mean, you just went back for another master's in music. So we'll probably see you on some grand stage touring with your giant orchestra at some point, because you really are impressive. Yeah, well, it seems to be coming along. I think that people could check out your website, lizderstine.com, and you can check out a little bit more about her story. It breaks down some of these races, some of the accomplishments. Also, it allows you to dive into her music and enjoy it like I did. And you even can see how the races and the trails that we're talking about were used in some of that music. And like, I'm even listening to the one where you can hear the birds from the trail, and pretty cool stuff. So, and I grew up in music as well. If you ever come back to Portland, we'll hit a karaoke bar, and we'll teach everybody a lesson.
Absolutely.
All right, Liz. Well, thank you for coming on. Check out. Awesome. We'll definitely do it. Check out lizderstine.com if you want to catch up more with her. And of course, we are here at the Stafford Hills Club in Tualatin, Oregon, and you should check them out as well. StaffordHills.com for all the amenities. And I am going to finish this interview up and go work out myself. So, Liz, have a great rest of your day and keep running, all right?
Oh, thanks so much, Drew. You as well. Thanks for
have a
having
good
me.
day.